The airport was buzzing with its usual rhythm, passengers rushing, flight attendants moving swiftly, and the occasional announcement echoing through the terminal. Among the crowd, a towering figure in a hoodie and sweatpants made his way toward the gate, blending in with the travelers despite his undeniable presence. Shaquille O'Neal, or Big Shaq as fans loved to call him, wasn't one for unnecessary attention. He had built an empire far beyond basketball, investing in businesses, restaurants, and, unbeknownst to many, even an airline. He enjoyed seeing how things ran firsthand, often dropping by his ventures unannounced. Today was no different. He had booked a standard ticket under a different name, ready to experience his own airline as a regular passenger. At the check-in counter, a young flight attendant named Lisa adjusted her uniform and checked the passenger manifest. She took her job seriously. First class wasn't just about luxury. It was about maintaining the highest standards, and she wasn't about to let anything slip on her watch. As boarding began, passengers filed in, greeted with warm smiles and a welcoming tone. Lisa was stationed at the entrance, ensuring only those with first-class tickets took their rightful seats. Then Shaq stepped forward. His sheer size made him stand out. His outfit, casual, almost too casual, raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me, sir," Lisa said, offering a polite but firm smile. "First-class boarding is for premium passengers only." Shaq chuckled, assuming she was joking. "I know," he replied, handing over his ticket. Lisa barely glanced at it before shaking her head. "I'm sorry, but I think you might be in the wrong line. First class is reserved for VIP travelers who booked in advance." The towering man looked down at her, amused. "I did book in advance." Lisa hesitated. Something about his confidence made her second-guess herself. But she wasn't about to bend the rules. She had dealt with her fair share of passengers trying to sneak into first class, and as much as she hated confrontation, she took her job seriously. "I'll need to double-check this," she said, stepping aside to verify his ticket. The line behind Shaq grew longer, with murmurs of impatience rising. A few passengers recognized him, their eyes widening as they whispered among themselves. But Lisa remained oblivious. She was focused on doing her job right, not getting caught up in celebrity distractions. Shaq glanced around, hearing the whispers. He could have easily pulled out his phone, called the airline's management, and settled the matter in seconds. But he was curious, how far would this go? As Lisa returned with a supervisor, her expression unchanged, the tension thickened. "Sir, we checked, and unfortunately we can't allow you in first class." The supervisor, now recognizing who stood before them, went pale. "Lisa," they began cautiously, but Shaq simply raised a hand. "Don't worry about it," he said, his deep voice calm but carrying weight. Lisa stood firm, unaware that she was denying access to the very man who owned the airline. The other passengers watched with anticipation, waiting to see how it would unfold. And just as the situation was about to take a turn, Shaq leaned in slightly and said, "So, you're telling me I can't sit in my own first class?" The moment of realization was coming. Lisa just didn't know it yet. Lisa blinked, confusion flickering across her face. "Your own first class," she repeated, her voice laced with skepticism. Shaq tilted his head slightly, his lips pressing together to suppress a smirk. He could see the gears turning in her mind, but she wasn't there yet. The supervisor beside her fidgeted, glancing nervously between the two, but Lisa stood her ground, unaware of the weight of her words. "Sir, I understand you're frustrated, but rules are rules," she continued, her tone polite but unwavering. "Only authorized first-class ticket holders can board, and I've checked twice. Your name isn't on the list." Shaq let out a deep chuckle, shaking his head. "You're really serious about this, huh?" Lisa straightened her shoulders. "I take my job seriously, sir," she replied, still oblivious. The murmurs from the surrounding passengers grew louder. Some were trying to keep their laughter in, others whispering in disbelief. A few had even pulled out their phones, sensing that something unusual was unfolding before them. The supervisor finally stepped forward, clearing their throat. "Lisa, maybe we should?" But Lisa cut them off. "I know procedures," she insisted. "If we start making exceptions, things get out of hand." Shaq exhaled, rubbing his temple. He wasn't annoyed. If anything, he was impressed. She wasn't backing down, not even when the pressure was mounting. But the situation was beginning to drag on, and he knew it was time to put an end to the charade. "All right," he said, raising both hands in mock surrender. "Let me ask you something. Do you know who owns this airline? Lisa frowned, slightly thrown by the question. The airline? She hesitated before answering. Ah, I mean, I assume it's owned by some big corporation, maybe a group of investors. Shaq nodded slowly, giving her a moment to let the thought settle. Yeah, something like that. She glanced up at him, still not putting the pieces together. Why? This time, he couldn't hold back the smile. Because I am the owner. Silence. For a moment, the noise of the terminal seemed to fade away. Lisa blinked at him, processing what he had just said. Then she let out a small, awkward laugh, shaking her head. No way. That's not possible. Shaq didn't argue. He simply pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, and turned it around. On display was a news article from a well-known business site, his face plastered across the headline, Shaquille O'Neal expands empire with major stake in aviation industry. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. Her eyes flickered between the screen and Shaq's face, her expression shifting from disbelief to sheer panic. The color drained from her cheeks as realization crashed down on her. The supervisor, already pale, let out a quiet groan, as if they had just witnessed the biggest mistake of their career unfold right in front of them. Oh my God, Lisa finally breathed. You're serious. Shaq simply nodded. The weight of her actions hit her like a truck. She had just refused the Shaquille O'Neal, the owner of the very airline she worked for, access to first class. She had stood her ground, argued policies, and unknowingly embarrassed the one person who had the power to make or break her career. Her stomach twisted into knots. I didn't know, she stammered. I was just following protocol, I swear. Shaq held up a hand, cutting her off gently. Relax, he said, his tone easygoing. You were just doing your job. But Lisa wasn't sure if that made things better or worse. The tension in her chest refused to ease. Sir, Shaq tapped his chin, pretending to think. Now, what should I do about this? He mused out loud. Should I fire you, reassign you, or maybe promote you? Lisa's heart skipped a beat. Promote, she echoed, eyes wide with shock. The passengers around them held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Shaq's face remained unreadable, but his deep chuckle sent another wave of nervousness through Lisa. He wasn't just some random VIP, he was a legend, a businessman, and her boss. And now, the decision of what came next rested entirely in his hands. Lisa stood frozen, her heart pounding as Shaq studied her with a playful smirk. The other passengers were silent, watching the scene unfold like it was the most entertaining thing they had ever witnessed at an airport. Some were still recording, whispering excitedly to each other, waiting for Shaq's next move. Lisa swallowed hard. I don't know what to say, she stammered. Shaq tilted his head. Well, you were pretty confident earlier, he teased. Where'd all that go? Lisa felt a lump form in her throat. She had always prided herself on staying professional, on keeping her cool in difficult situations. But this was beyond anything she had ever imagined. She had unintentionally embarrassed her own boss in front of a whole crowd. I was trying to do my job the right way, she said quickly. I didn't mean any disrespect, Mr. O'Neal. Shaq held her gaze for a moment before breaking into a deep laugh. Relax, Lisa. I'm not mad. She blinked. You're not? He shook his head. Nah, you actually impressed me. Lisa's mouth opened slightly, completely caught off guard. That was the last thing she had expected to hear. Shaq leaned on the counter, his towering frame making the desk look tiny. You didn't back down, even when people around you were pressuring you. You stood by the rules. Most people would have folded the second they realized I was someone important. But you kept it professional. Lisa exhaled, relief washing over her, though she was still too stunned to fully process what was happening. I just wanted to be fair, she said. To treat everyone the same. Shaq nodded approvingly, and that's exactly why I'm not mad. The supervisor, who had been standing awkwardly to the side, finally dared to breathe again. The crowd around them let out a collective chuckle, as if the tension had just melted away. Lisa, still slightly overwhelmed, managed a nervous smile. So, does this mean I still have a job? She asked hesitantly. Shaq grinned. Not just a job, he crossed his arms. You ever thought about moving up in this company? Lisa's eyes widened. Wait, what? I need people like you running things, Shaq said. People who don't cut corners, who don't play favorites, who know how to handle pressure. Lisa's brain felt like it short-circuited. A few minutes ago, she thought she was about to be fired. Now her boss, the Shaquille O'Neal, was suggesting a promotion? I don't know what to say, she admitted, still trying to catch up. Shaq shrugged. Say yes. Lisa let out a breathless laugh. Yes, she blurted before she could even think. I mean, yes sir, absolutely. Shaq nodded, satisfied. Good, he turned to the supervisor. Make sure she gets a meeting with corporate. I want to see where we can put her. The supervisor nodded so fast it looked like their head might fall off. Of course, sir. Right away. Shaq finally straightened up, stretching his arms. Now can I finally get to my seat? He joked. Lisa, still in slight shock, let out a laugh and stepped aside. Please, sir. First class is yours. Shaq grinned and gave her a fist bump before making his way onto the plane. As he disappeared down the jet bridge, Lisa exhaled, still trying to wrap her head around what had just happened. The crowd of passengers slowly started moving again, the show officially over. Some gave her approving nods, others whispered in amazement, and a few simply shook their heads, still in disbelief. Lisa stood at the counter, processing everything. She had just gone from nearly losing her job to getting a personal promotion from Shaquille O'Neal himself. She smiled to herself, shaking her head. Well, she muttered under her breath, that escalated quickly. And with that, she straightened her uniform, took a deep breath, and got back to work. Because no matter what her future held, she still had a flight to board.